Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Healthy Innovators Live TV. My name is Barry Shrier, and I'm your host for this show. Every week, what we do on Healthy Innovators Live TV is we bring you a couple of very interesting, competent, ambitious, amazing people who are doing important work in the area of healthcare, technology, and innovation. So very, very proud to bring you again this week a bunch of really interesting people and really looking forward to this conversation. Once again, my name is Barry Shrier, and I'm your host. Healthy Innovators Live TV is sponsored by GIANT Health. Please go to their website, www.giant.health, to learn more about that. GIANT is a global community of nearly 200,000 people whose business is healthcare, technology, and innovation. GIANT runs an annual event, the GIANT Health event, which takes place in November and December every year. The event, according to the Financial Times newspaper, is Europe's largest and most valuable annual healthcare technology event. GIANT also publishes a weekly newsletter and publishes and sponsors the weekly Healthy Innovators Live TV, which everyone's watching right now. And we also have launched a new initiative this year, which is called European Health Tech Innovation Week. So from the 17th to the 21st of May this year, we're running 5 one-day conferences across Europe, championing the leading innovation in healthcare, from Barcelona, from Berlin, from Paris, Stockholm, and Liverpool. Each event will be introduced by the mayor and the local members of parliament for these events, and will be showcasing some of the best innovation from the leading large hospital groups in these regions, leading global companies and small startups that are creating amazing innovations on behalf of the healthcare sector. So once again, please go to the website, www.giant.health, and we would love to welcome you at the annual Health Tech Innovation event, the European Health Tech Innovation Show, 17th to 21st of May. So once again, really happy to have 2 incredibly interesting people today. We have Tony Kypreos. Hello, Tony. Hi, how are you today?
Hi, Barry. Fine. Pleasure to be with you.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. And we also have Amit Patel. Hello, Amit. How are you doing?
Hey, very well, and delighted to be on.
Good stuff. Well, look, welcome to you both. And we absolutely, honestly, we really appreciate your time, which is incredibly valuable. You guys are doing interesting, important stuff in healthcare. So thanks for joining us. We're very, very grateful and glad to have you on board. So to begin with, Tony, let's talk about healthcare and what are some of the biggest issues in health right now? What are some of the biggest challenges that we need to be concerning ourselves with?
Well, that's a tremendously good and huge question. I can talk about the things that I'm mostly focused on, which I think are really very important and increasingly so. So my focus is very much on the health effects of environment and climate change from a global view. So that's really the macro level, and there's so many implications of that around the world, from global south and emerging nations right through developing nations. And the other area, which is much more specific, is digital therapeutics and development of applications and processes and products, and getting approval for them through the regulators, etc., and designing the right interventions. So one's very macro and one's a little bit more specific are the 2 key things I'm working on right now.
Yes. Okay. I mean, both very interesting and very important. Of course, as you know, my background was a tech entrepreneur working in global warming and climate change. We created clean tech solutions for the transport industry. So these issues of environmental protection and the health issues relating to that are very important. I remember we were creating carbon reduction solutions for the transport industry. Our customers were Chinese truck makers. And of course, journalists would always like to catch us out and say, oh, what's this climate change problem? Big deal. What is global warming? Big deal. Why are you guys doing all this stuff and taking government money to address global warming? What's this clean tech agenda? And I said, look, forget about all that. Let's say there is no problem with global warming. Let's say climate change doesn't exist or it's not man-made. What about pollution? What about all the elderly in every city worldwide who might have some respiratory concern? And what about the absolute medical facts that climate change and pollution are a problem for them? So anyhow, there's big issues there, and those are all dear to our heart. So very, very proud to have you on board and interesting to learn more about that. And likewise, Amit, tell us please a little bit about your experiences. What are some of the biggest challenges in healthcare right now that you believe are worthy of all of our attention and that maybe technology innovation can help to address?
Yeah, I mean, we're living in ever-changing times, even so now, right, in healthcare. And I think, this has been a problem for a while, but it's particularly acute now. How do you manage demand and capacity in healthcare in a better way, right? How do you balance customer centricity, cost, clinical outcome in everything that the industry is trying to do to serve, patients and the stakeholders within it? And I think that, if we can focus on that and think about the customer, I think a lot of things come through in terms of the way we think about design, digital operating models, omni-channel servicing, all of these sorts of things.
Sure.
I think we just need to pivot more on that.
Yes, exactly. You mentioned omni-channel communication services. So just in case any of our listeners around the world right now aren't necessarily familiar with that concept, could you elaborate very briefly on what that means?
Yeah, so for me, that's interacting with the customer in the channel and method of communication of their choice, whether that's face-to-face, in person, virtual, through WhatsApp, Facebook, whatever medium that is.
Yes. Okay. So all these different communication channels that we are all using these days, and the explosion of more of them every year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. No, very interesting. Tony, looking at this theme of digital therapeutics, sometimes it's referred to as DTX, isn't it? What is digital therapeutics, and why do we need it? If I have a medical issue that can be resolved with my GP recommending me to take some pill or something like that, what's wrong with that?
Well, we don't want to offend the pharmaceutical industry with digital health all in one go, but there is potentially many issues with that, and I think we are going down to the prescription directly. But the digital therapeutics industry could be a complete substitute for drugs. It could be a complement and to link into adherence, or it could be could be a completely separate thing altogether, not linked into the same sort of issues. So, for example, I'm working with a really interesting company which from Ireland that is still in stealth mode, but is working overactive bladder syndrome, which is a huge issue, but people don't really realize much about it. And it's like, what is it we can do? And there's many drugs people can take, but there may be some issues around that. But a lot of it, and you'll see a lot of things in digital therapeutics from people like Pear Therapeutics and Click Therapeutics, big American companies, cognitive behavioral therapy and psychosomatic sort of connections are very significant. So some of these companies have been very good at getting proper clinical studies done with randomized control trials and actual efficacy shown,
right?
And getting class 2, FDA class 2 acceptance, where they can be prescribed by doctors. And there's no better way to get acceptance and to get distribution of an application that works and is trusted than being prescribed by doctors.
Yes.
And the last key component is the remittances. Can the doctor and can the application provider be paid in the same way? So it's a very interesting dynamic, and I think you will see a lot of pharmaceutical companies and digital therapeutics companies collaborating in the future.
Sure. What are some challenges for the new, what do you want to call it, the new innovators, the creators of these digital therapeutics? Well,
I think that the challenges are good ones, because there are, obviously very serious regulatory approval procedures.
Sure.
Whether it's MHRA or the FDA, etc. And they just have to show, that they have designed the product in the right way, that's secure, it's interoperable, it follows the right processes.
Right.
All of these things, the data has integrity, and most of all, there's efficacy and no negative outcomes. So there are shortcuts where you can look at predicates, and then you can develop the candidate based on that predicate, so you can actually build on top of it.
I understand.
And you've got to follow the key challenge, I think, is to be very good in your clinical design study to enable to get your approval.
Right.
Follow all the regulatory procedures, but also something that Amit would probably definitely add to is design with engagement in mind. Don't get boring and don't just focus on the process flows, etc. Allow some creativity and allow the opportunity for people to engage in it and actually enjoy and find it easy to use.
Yes, yeah, that's a very interesting point, and one which I think is perhaps sometimes easily overlooked, especially with people perhaps from an engineering background or that type of thing. Very interesting. So Amit, does that relate to you? And also, if you can help our audience to understand a little bit about who you are and what you're doing these days.
Yeah, sure. So it does relate. I'm the founder of Healthy. Healthy is basically we're building the first truly digital UK health insurance product.
Wow.
And we're doing that really to solve for a number of issues we believe that exist in the industry.
Right.
Firstly, insurance is terribly complicated, whether it's household insurance or motor. I mean, the amount of T's and C's and understanding what's covered and not covered, it's not simple.
Absolutely.
I think in health insurance in particular, I would say that many of the current incumbents, they're quite behind in terms of digital servicing and digital operating models. They just don't have that in a seamless way.
Yeah.
And then all of this, I think, impacts another thing, which is the cost. It's expensive. Delivering care is expensive enough, but if you're not able to operate in an efficient manner through multiple channels with your customers, then you add to that cost. And I think all of those things sort of equal poor customer experience. So we're building, a data and technology-led insurance business effectively, targeting the UK market in the first instance.
Nice.
By way of background, I spent 8 or 9 years in the industry in Bupa, where I had the opportunity to run strategy and M&A in the UK and ventures as well. I started off life as a surgeon in the NHS, so I've first-hand experience of delivering healthcare. So I feel quite fortunate to have many vantage points around the problems that we see in healthcare.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you for sharing that. And obviously, we love what you're doing with Healthy. What's the website for that, please?
It's www.hlthie.com, HLTHIE.
Excellent. Good. We'll make sure that there's links to that at the bottom of the episode and that everybody can learn more about that. But we were talking from what Tony mentioned about these issues of access and usability and what do you want to call it? UX, consumer experience, and challenges, I guess, where there's an interface. You have a clinician or you have people in industry like health insurance professionals, and then you have the customer. And what are some of your experiences in trying to, how do you say it, reconcile all that and bring that together?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, isn't it? And it just depends on effectively who's engaged. Digital, in my view, is if you're building digital products, it's a cross-functional expertise or capability that's required.
Yes.
And often, startups are small, they'll have particular expertise, but not all of them. So the clinical orientated ones are very good at understanding, what needs to happen from a scientific perspective and a clinician perspective. But designing for consumer experience or customer experience may not necessarily be their forte. So I think thinking through your stakeholders or customers and the journeys they need to go on, whether they're the doctors or healthcare practitioners that sit on one side and the customers that sit on the other, and designing for them and using or having those users at the heart of testing and learning your design process and customer journey.
Absolutely.
Is really, really important.
Yes. Yeah. And again, perhaps quite easily overlooked. Tony, does that relate in terms of digital therapeutics? Is there a conflict between regulation and the requirements that innovators have to meet for regulatory purposes on the one hand, and again, the usability or the patient experience on the other?
No, not at all. It should be very complementary. It has to be. So digital therapeutics, I mean, it's a barrier to entry to get approved as an FDA class 2 sort of digital therapeutic, for example. It's difficult to get, but you can get it. And then there's a moat that you create around other less serious players as well. And the key thing is, I do a lot of venture capital in the past, and I've been an investor. And so as soon as you've been approved as a IAC 62304 or FDA approved, sort of like even if you just on the road to doing it, you're open to some very serious funding straight away, because there's a huge progress in that. Now, the key thing with digital therapeutics is not just to have efficacy, but to also have engagement. There's no point efficacy with just 100 patients, you should have efficacy with millions of patients. So, ease of use and design. I did a lot of work with IDEO in the past with, user-centric design and ethnographics and that sort of stuff. And as Amit was saying, you really do start with the users, the patients, the clinicians, etc. And you have to rebuild from scratch very often, because there's no point building on top of very archaic and irrelevant or no longer functioning legacy systems. And also interoperability, also data management, data interrogation, big data analysis, all these things is where the richness comes in. And that comes in also to Amit's area, because you can then go into personalized risk profiles, and you can do a whole lot of things. I think that you asked at the beginning, Barry, about the key issues. And I think for developed countries in Western Europe, 80 to 85% of the total healthcare cost is managing chronic conditions. That's right. And that's where I think a lot of these apps and digital interventions can help. And I think Duncan Selby, CEO of Public Health England, said it very eloquently. He said, in terms of managing these chronic conditions and lifelong health, you just need a job, a home, and friends. You've got to have. It's a very wide-ranging, life engaging type solution. I think we should be doing a lot more on preventative health and wellness, and I think that's also where Amit's work and the health insurance industry should be doing a lot more. Yes. No, it's very interesting you mentioned these points, and I agree with you completely. I suppose we talk about this often on these TV shows. There's a challenge for society, isn't there, that healthcare traditionally, in fact, is sick care, isn't it? You only call the doctor when you're unwell, and then you end up engaging with the healthcare, which is the sick care service provider. And therefore, that's unsustainable, isn't it? As society gets older, as we have new big diseases rolling across society, diabetes and things like this, it's just completely unsustainable. More and more demand for healthcare. I've never met anybody in any country who says, I hope we have less healthcare services in the future than we have historically, skyrocketing costs. So this issue of transitioning in any way possible from sick care to wellness, and can we nudge people towards wellness? Does that overlap with your world, Amit? Is there an obligation for insurance companies to nudge us towards wellness, other than just the crass commercial objective of reducing the costs for the insurer?
I think absolutely. I mean, anyone engaged in delivering healthcare or providing access to it should be thinking about prevention and wellness. Or, it's part of the customer journey, if you like, for me. Yeah. Right. And we have a moral obligation to deal with that. I think the cost-benefit analysis of these sorts of interventions are hard to kind of stack up when you're an insurer in the UK, at least, where you typically run an annual policy, and if the price available to a customer at the end of that year on renewal is not satisfactory to them, they may move, right? And so any investment in that customer's health and well-being is almost lost to a competitor or doesn't materialize, because, as you know, health and prevention, this type of thing, it's a long game. If I eat fruit for 5 days, that doesn't mean I'm not going to get cancer next year. Right? No. I have to transition, and this is where I think it's a really interesting space, and we talk about it a lot. But behavioral science and behavioral economics comes into its own, right? I mean, obviously, as you get infirm, you can't do stuff, right? Not least you're in pain or you've got to be hospitalized, but you can't work, you can't go climb Mount Kilimanjaro, all of those sorts of things. Yes. So it's how do you appeal to the inner psyche of individuals to start to change their habits at an early stage, to an enduring process. And I just don't think we've got the data and enough of that science deployed yet to be able to make those radical and seismic changes. But it will come. It will come. I hope it will come. And I guess one of my other bugbears about life on all things kind of digital, whether we talk about digital therapeutics or digital health overall, is we've got a proliferation of point solutions, which is great. But the reality of life is, a customer with diabetes will probably need a diabetes app. They'll need to think about diabetic retinopathy and all of these sorts of things. And all of these point solutions that have been created, they need to connect in some way so we can offer a more holistic, at least front-end experience for the customer.
Yes.
So if there's one appeal to people out there thinking about digital health is, can we think about interoperability and kind of API first design of digital products so that they can connect together and work together?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm glad you raised that subject, because that's come up a lot in conversations we've had with the investor community. Tony, you mentioned that you have some background in the world of investment. If you can share with us a little bit more about your background and also some of the other things you're involved in right now.
Yeah, certainly. So I was formerly on the executive board of T-Mobile International and T-Venture. So I was doing corporate venturing there.
Oh, okay.
So that was really the beginning of the convergence of, and I know Barry, you have a telco background as well, so we can chew the fat on that.
Yes.
But, it was really at the beginning of the convergence of health and mobile, and obviously with 5G and the low latency and high bandwidth, there's an infrastructure for development there. So I was doing quite a lot of investments in that sector. I'm also a co-founder investor in one of the top UK accelerators, that Springboard, that was acquired by Techstars some years ago. And also I've made quite a large number of angel investments across several areas, but I'm particularly interested in health tech and these sort of areas.
Excellent.
But I'd say before I go on, one thing I want to pick up on Amit was, mentioned that about diabetes, because that was the area in one of my last. I've been an entrepreneur myself, so I've sat in Amit's chair and had that stress. But I was involved in pre-diabetes management and very interested in that and nutritional management and manage the behavior and everything. And for example, one company I'm working with EIT Health, who have some fantastic stable of companies from Europe, is social diabetes, and they're making really big changes within diabetes management in Latin America. And this is the thing where we have to look at the difference between the UK and Germany and France and other places, where in Mexico, for example, 20% of people have diabetes and they cannot get health insurance. They are not insurable.
Wow.
So with social diabetes, that care management can be monitored, can be had, and they are working with the health insurers to be able to cover them. So
yes,
I think there's a lot of differences in the area, which leads me to my key passion now, which I mentioned at the beginning, is all about the environmental and climate change effects on health.
Yeah.
And, really the differences between different parts of the world, the global south, you can call it, emerging and developing countries, which have the biggest vulnerabilities and probably the weakest healthcare resilience, and many other things that we're all going to face with predictable outcomes in the next few years. So going back to your point about being an investor, the next 5 to 10 years, I know a lot of VCs, investment thesis is looking at the convergence of environmental effects and climate effects and big issues around health challenges in the world. So
right.
If you're an entrepreneur watching, that's an area to think about.
Yes, absolutely. But wearing your hat, Tony, as an angel investor, please make sure that you keep saving all your cash and keep it aside for Amit, okay?
Yeah, I'm looking at that. I'm gonna be one of the first customers, that's for sure. If not,
awesome.
Pardon me for being cheeky, but Tony, can you elaborate on these issues of environment and healthcare? I mean, on the surface, the connections are obvious, but what are the issues in terms of tech innovation, for example, and stimulation from the investor community that can accomplish? Well, let's elaborate a little bit further on what you were just talking about.
Yeah, well, really, I'm so fascinated and also concerned very much about the impacts of environment and climate change on health and all over the world. And I think it's going to really impact Amit's industry very much in particular, not just in terms of infrastructure and business continuity, but also really in terms of health. So the key thing here to think about is to think systemically and to think cross-functional.
Right.
And so you can think, people perhaps don't think that certain climatic conditions or pollution effects or environmental conditions affect health, but they really do. So
yes,
for example, you can look at Earth systems like higher atmospheric CO2. You can look at mechanism like lower crop yields. and look at conditions and diseases like vector-borne illnesses and diseases, zoonotic diseases, and also nutritional deficiencies, which are going to be huge impacts in terms of health and conditions in the near future.
Yes, absolutely. And can you cite any examples of tech innovation in these areas, which would be worthwhile to highlight?
Yes, there is a company that I'm working with for the Global Entrepreneur Program called Elara Health, and what they're doing, they're a tremendous company. They've done their Series A, and they've got a major investment from the Gates Foundation.
Nice.
And what they do is, when you're operating, particularly in the developing world and emerging countries, you've got to think about not just the innovation itself, but how it will be adopted, how it will make money, how it will be financed, all these sort of things. So what they do is they equip networks of small healthcare providers with life-saving diagnostic and essential diagnostic equipment of the highest caliber. And what they do is point-of-care diagnostics, but not redundant stuff, but actually the most innovative small devices for ultrasound or MRI or things of that nature.
Yes.
Also provide flexible financing options. So
nice.
The key thing with Africa that's missing, and many Latin American countries and Asian countries, is there isn't really the point-of-care diagnostics you need to know to understand population health in itself.
Okay.
And not everybody in Africa, is not just about malaria or things of that nature. There's mental health issues. There's neurological degeneration. There's increasingly diabetes through malnutrition from eating the wrong foods, not just lack of foods.
Yes.
And all these sort of things, and obviously oncology and all these areas. So that's an example where you have to design the right solution, but also the right go-to-market approach, etc. And these companies are very investable, and increasingly so. And I think the final thing I'd say is that we're very privileged sitting in the UK, all of us three here today, that we have some of the world's best innovation capabilities, that we should be looking beyond the UK and looking across the world in terms of how we deploy these solutions.
Yes, I agree with you entirely, Tony. It's a really good point. So in addition to asking Amit to come back to this show, Tony, very, very keen for you to come back with regard to the global perspective and the global innovation opportunities. And we're also, of course, really ambitious to find more international healthcare tech entrepreneurs and innovators and to get them onto these TV shows. So don't forget that, and love to have you back on talking about those types of things and bringing more people on board. Well, look, you guys, we only have about 5 more minutes, so we're going to take some time here just to wrap up the conversation and make plans for how we're going forward. Amit, we'd love to hear a little bit more about what your goals are for this year, and if you have any requests or invitations to our audience. As you know, GIANT Health, we're an audience of nearly 200,000 people around the world. Unfortunately, they're not all watching this TV show right now, but we want to reach out to all of them. Whether you're looking to recruit people or you need some trial partners or fundraising, whatever it is, what are some of your goals this year and how can the community support you?
Yeah, well, overall, we want to get to launch our product by Q3, which obviously is a tremendous challenge with product build, COVID, regulatory hurdles, etc.
Sure.
But as part of that, we're building a digital provider marketplace. So providers of healthcare products and services that are digital first. So first thing is anyone in the GIANT Health community that's got really cool healthcare products, we'd like to talk to you. And see whether there's an opportunity to work and join our marketplace, work together, join our marketplace. Secondly, we're fully bootstrapped, so to operate, we're going to obviously have to raise funding. So anyone who's inspired by what we've spoken about, at least from a healthy perspective on this program, and thank you for the opportunity, who's interested, any interest in that, who wants to have a chat, please do reach out from the investment community, and we'll be happy to make time, obviously, to
Excellent.
engage.
Yes, Amit, very good stuff. Do you have a timetable regarding when you want to launch a funding round and approximately how much you're looking to raise?
Yeah, so we're in the process of sorting out the fundraising strategy, but we'll be out into market within the next 3 months, and we'll be looking to raise our first seed round between 500 and $1 million.
Perfect. Excellent. Let me go get my wallet. No, that sounds very good. And you can count on us for lots of support. And of course, we'd be extremely proud to help by way of introducing you to investors and things like that. I know Tony's saving up his money for this opportunity as well. But, well, very good stuff, Amit. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
Tony, likewise, you mentioned the Global Entrepreneur Program. Is that something you're involved in right now? And what are some of the goals coming up this year with you?
Yes, certainly. The Global Entrepreneur Program is sponsored by the Department of International Trade, and we scout the world for the world's best entrepreneurial talent to help them scale from the UK, and it's been very successful over the last 10 years. Another thing I'd like to give a shout out to is accelerate2030.net. So we're on the advisory council, and we're the largest platform around sustainable development goals in collaboration with the UNDP and Pfizer.
Wow.
And we operate in 26 countries. And just to bring it out there to say, we're always looking for great ventures and also for corporate partners, particularly around healthcare, to join us. So check out the website and please contact me about that.
Yes. What's the name of that organization again and the website, please?
Accelerate2030.net. And we're a collaboration with the UNDP, Pfizer, BCG, and many other partners in 26 countries.
Brilliant. Well, that's extremely exciting, and it sounds like very important work. So congratulations on that, and of course, good luck with how all of that develops this year.
Thank you.
Hey, look, Amit and Tony, obviously, absolutely superb to have you guys on this week's episode of Healthy Innovators Live TV. We're grateful. I love what you guys are doing. It's impressive and important and impactful. So congratulations on your work. If there's anything at all you can think of that we can do to be supporting you, please don't hesitate to let us know. And on behalf of our sponsors, very happy to say thank you to you guys, and thank you to our audience. We have people from around the world who dial into these episodes. This is GIANT sponsored Healthy Innovators Live TV. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Barclays Bank, and their Eagle Labs initiative. And we'd also like to thank our sponsor, Vodafone Business. We're grateful for your support, and we're very keen to continue our valuable collaboration with you guys. So once again, my name is Barry Shrier. This is this week's episode of Healthy Innovators Live TV, sponsored by GIANT Health. Don't forget to go to the GIANT website, www.giant.health, and check out our upcoming event in May. That's European Health Tech Innovation Week, 17th to the 21st of May. 5 exciting healthcare technology innovation conferences in Berlin, Barcelona, Paris, Stockholm, and Liverpool. We invite everybody to connect with us and engage, and we'd love to support all of you. So thank you once again, and we appreciate your time and your interest in healthcare and technology and innovation. Our vision is to improve the health and the world by supporting innovation and supporting health tech entrepreneurs. So very proud to have you guys on this week's episode. Thank you, and keen to ensure whatever we can to see you thrive and be successful in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you very much, and goodbye to everyone.